Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy hump day. Thank you, Corey. I forgot what day of the week it was there for a second. Corey Buchan, happy hump day over on YouTube. Sydney Thiessen, good morning on LinkedIn. Flo, what is up? Good morning to you. Anthony Jimenez, my favorite time of the morning. Yeah, Anthony, let's be honest. The favorite time of the morning is when I texted you a little bit ago. Okay, let's call that what that was. Robert Ban, can't wait to see that face in person next week. God, I love you. I needed that, Robert. You just make me feel so great every time you say stuff like that. I got a guest who's kind of been busy. I'll say busy. I've missed him a lot, but we got some time with the man, the myth, the legend. Mr. Kyle Lintner is back on the show, ladies and gentlemen. I need a thing for cheering to come on there.
You need the applause sign with the canned sound.
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, buddy. Dude, how are you?
Good, man. What's going on in your world? How the hell are you doing?
I am well. I have been busy. Busy is good, but yeah, with the busyness, I think I've kind of reduced the amount of, I don't know what you want to call it. I've reduced my interactions on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I don't think you've missed anything, to be honest.
I know I haven't.
It's dude, social media to me is just wild. It's like the old day of like a big crowd of people just fucking talking shit for the sake of talking shit sometimes. And, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. But I think one thing to note, it's never as bad as people want to make it sound. And it's never as good as people want to make it sound either at the same time, because frankly, and you know, this isn't the most popular of my opinions out there, 98% of us are not affected by the overall freight market, right? Like the majority of the people that are really affected by it are the publicly traded companies whose entire profitability is based on the rise and fall of their stock price. The majority of us are very insulated from a lot of this stuff if we do what we say we are going to do at the beginning. Not a lot of customers actually, you know, contrary to popular belief, customers don't like shuffling providers as much as everybody might think, right? Like there's a reason why they do, and it's mostly a failure on your part as a provider on why they even entertain other people.
Yep, completely agree on all that. It really is status quo, and as it was yesterday, so it will be today. You know, to be honest, the only people that are truly affected by the freight market is the consumer, because they're the ones that they're going to pay more or less for the goods. Everybody passes that along. If rates are high, pass along to the consumer. Rates are high, pass along to the broker, pass along to the carrier. His input costs are higher. I do agree when rates are super low, carriers feel it. Sure. But outside of the publicly traded who do have to report on earnings, like you said, the rest of us, you're doing your job. Costs are high, costs are low. You know, yesterday we were at war with Oceania. Today it's Eurasia.
No, that's exactly it. Sydney, I will be at the TIA. Kyle, will you be coming to Phoenix next week?
You know, I think I'm only like one or two more people away from asking me from having to go. Not scheduled, but a lot of requests and asks lately. I'm not an intermediary, and I don't really deal with them.
I know. Everybody who thinks Kyle should go, drop a Y or a yes in the comments right now. If we get 10, I'm making this up, Kyle might consider coming. If we get 10 people who say Kyle needs to show up, put it out there. Robert Bain, speaking of people I can't wait to see in person. See, there's two. There's two. Sydney will be 3. So we need 7 more people who need Kyle there for him to consider. Sonny Sharma, good morning, orange shirt gang. Yeah, man, I think like, because from my perspective, and I said, there we go. We got one. There's two. Let's go. It's all coming through, baby. Yeah, man. Cause like I was talking yesterday about what like the real effects of the market. I think what is keeping rates low is desperation by a lot of people to survive. And I think that is something that a lot of individuals, and I'm not ripping on anybody who's an employee out there, but a lot of individuals who get direct deposits every 2 weeks can't comprehend not knowing is like that desperate times calling for desperate measures style of decision making in business when you're like, I just need to take it for $1,500 right now because I just need revenue to come in. I need to move my truck and maybe get a better paying load out of that other location that's out there.
Yeah. I have firsthand experience with organizations who had that mindset, and this is going to drive you nuts and kind of scare you. Their reason for it was they just needed the cash flow.
Yeah.
And they factored. So it didn't, and to be very specific, it was one customer who they were very close to zero margin after the end of the day, net zero, but needed the cash flow because they got paid up front to continue paying all their other bills. So any load that came from this customer was essentially a yes, no matter what the rate was, just to keep the cash coming in through your door. I've worked with some smaller carriers and even some decent sized ones who aren't as extreme, but have a very similar mindset of I need to take whatever because I need to keep the wheels moving. And while that is something that I do say all the time myself, you need to keep the wheels moving. Obviously, I say that meaning at a rate that's decent or a rate that's in line, not keep the wheels moving at 20 cents a mile. Yeah. Again, you never know what anyone else's freight network looks like. You never know if someone's taking a rate because they're getting a higher paying load next. I always talk about the highest blend that you can get as a carrier. It's not one each individual load. And I don't like to talk about head haul, back haul, because that doesn't really exist. But if somebody's going to go get $3.50 a mile and they just need to get to that destination, they're going to take $1.20 to get there. And you're going to look at that $1.20 and say, oh my God, they're ruining the market. No, they've got something else. But even if we pull those out, I do know overall rates are very low for everyone involved. And we are essentially at cost for the majority of the market right now. So we all know that trucking is a razor thin margin, but we are at the thinnest of that razor right now.
Yeah. No, I get it. Kyle Provost says we have to have Kyle's there. So that's voting.
Well, if I go, does that mean Kyle Provost is going?
Kyle Provost is going, actually.
No. Here
Flight,
we go.
Hotel, everything, ticket per everything, he's going. All right. Just throwing that out there. So Scottsdale's nice this time of the year, Kyle. I know you'll like it down here.
I come out there, I'm sleeping at your place, and I don't want a spare bed.
That's fine. We can cuddle up. Don't worry about that. So speaking of the market, so my friends over at Green Screen sent over some data for us to kind of talk about here. And, for anybody out there can look at it. It's just go to greenscreens.ai/trends. They published all of this out there. And, we're just looking at, it might be tough for some of you guys to kind of see this on the screen, but we're out here looking, at just rate averages and everything. And this is regional carrier spot market trends that are out there based on the Midwest, Northeast, and everything, as you guys can see. And, some of their takeaways is obviously first quarter's over, which is considered in the trucking market as the last down period before a recovery that could happen out there. And March carrier spot rates trend showing dry van at minus 3.2% and reefer at minus 3.9% on downward trajectories compared to the second half of 2023. Midwest and Southwest markets are leading this trend for van and reefer. Give me just one sec here. We're going to pop over because we got some other graphs here. And then, so here's just another portion of the spot dry van rates. And then here's March data out there for 2024. That we're looking at. And then, flatbeds are showing a sign of recovery, according to their data out there at 2.1% compared to the second half of last year. And with the Southeast showing a greatest inflationary increase at 4.5%. And I also think, sorry, my computer technology, you guys give me a sec. And that is a truck that we actually moved out there. So you guys, I do actually move freight. But, looking at some of that stuff out here, Kyle, it's like the second quarter of 2024, I think is going to be inflated due to what recently happened here out in Baltimore. I think that that is going to have a major effect on the overall freight market because from my perspective, flatbeds and step decks are going to be corralled in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast region to help with this influx of container moves that they're going to have to transport out of the port of Baltimore that are going to be redirected. And, because there isn't enough chassis, right? Like the JOC put an article out there here recently stating that. So that's going to have an inflationary measure on the freight market as a whole, I think, coming up here.
I agree with that. I think it stays confined to that type of modality, though, and that type of equipment. If we think about the port of Baltimore and the amount of goods, you're 1% of the entire United States. So from a volume standpoint, it's not really too much. And the locality of it does make it easier if you were a ship that's not destined to it, or you needed to get your goods out. New York, New Jersey is pretty darn close. Philadelphia is close. You can even go further south to Virginia, Charleston, etc. The equipment, though, to move some of those stuff, the goods around, though, that you are going to talk about flatbed, you're going to talk about open deck right there. That does coincide with what you showed in those charts. As far as anything that is positive, flatbed was already showing the signs of strengths. I would be curious how much of that has to deal with seasonality. Those charts are an interesting way to view things. Not only is it broken down by geographic location, but each month along the years, and I saw it back to 2018, is compared to the average rate in the second half of 2023. So we pick a moment in time. It's just a snapshot, but we're now comparing everything past and present to that one half of 2023. I'd love to tell you I know the answer. I'm not quite an open deck rate expert as far as seasonality is concerned, but if I do know on average, warmer months in particular, as we get to this spot on the calendar, tend to have a pickup in volume for flatbed and open deck because we're in construction season.
Yeah.
And those types of goods need to be moved around. They're going to go on that type of equipment. So something like Port of Baltimore, now what's involved as far as moving forward with goods and cleanup, yes, that is a population dense area as well. Most of those moves are shorter haul. It doesn't have so much to do with the haul. It has to do with just needing the truck. I would not be surprised whatsoever to see persistently higher rates on that type of equipment in the mid-Atlantic and possibly the entire East Coast.
I think it's going to bleed over from everything from the Mississippi River east eventually, right? Because there's what the Northeast always brings is there is a large majority of people who will not go out there, right? Like it's the shittiest part of the country to drive in, all right? Any of you guys who live in fucking New York and New Jersey and you're all fucking delusional. It is terrible to drive out in that area. But from my perspective, though, is money's going to call on this eventually, right? And people are going to consider that. But, one ripple that goes on out there is now everybody who drives in that area is going to be insulated into that area. And then they're going to command higher rates. And then eventually it's going to bring more capacity in there because it's inevitable that somebody's going to hear, hey, people are getting paid $1,000 a day minimum to go from the port of Baltimore down to Norfolk, Virginia, and stuff like that. So that's going to draw capacity up into that area. And I think that's going to affect rates for the flatbed market throughout the country because people are not going to take that freight from St. Louis out to West Coast now because they're like, fuck it, I'm going to go to the Northeast and I'm going to sit up and park my trucks up there and try and take advantage of this stuff, right? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. The nice part on this is we're going to know right away because there is a lot of human psychology involved in this. That has been the case so far when there is a jump in rates, especially right now. Everyone is so thirsty for a high rate that they will chase it. If I were a betting man, I would say capacity will head to that area. If there is not the volume to sustain it, we will find out immediately because rates will plummet in that area.
Yeah.
If they do not, even if they stay the same, I would argue that there is an excess of capacity in the area because if the demand or the volume goes up and rates don't lower, that means we do have an equilibrium. And if we do know demand is up, that also means capacity is up in the area.
Yeah, there, some regions. So out here, we're talking about just, some takeaways as a whole out there in the overall market. So like freight's down like 6 to 7% year over year right now between 2023 and 2024. And the single digit rate changes are standard that's out there. Cause I still think that a lot of it, the explanation of that is it is trying to kind of find that bottom And it's only a matter of time before, because again, call it what it is. There's an oversupply. All right. Like that supply and demand at this point, you guys, simple economics. I went to public school, obviously, so take everything what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but that is a natural driver of it. Is when it hits the bottom, eventually people just can't sustain anymore. All right. They can't sustain. They can't take on any more freight. They can't get any more extensions on credit from the bank or mispay. If trucks get repossessed, shit happens. And I think that that's really what these next couple of months are going to lead to. And brokers aren't immune to this too, right? Kevin Hill with Brush Pass Research. If you guys don't follow him. It's a record broker closures every single month now, and it's rising every single month. And that is just a market effect of what happens when markets change, right? So, some which I think is really good points that they put out here for expectations of 2024 are going to be more seasonal and return less than less bottom bouncing. And then shippers are looking much more closely at their networks and are realigning capacity in anticipation of a return of more supply and demand balance out here. And again, you guys, all of this information that Greenscreens put out is on their website, greenscreens.ai/trends, you guys. And it, because it's like, from my perspective, and again, this is just somebody who's actually making sales calls every single day. You guys, I'm actually talking to shippers every single day. The sentiment I am getting is call us back. Like, really? They're like, we're good right now, but let's talk in a couple of months. I'm starting to see that become more and more prevalent, as in they're starting to get a pulse that things are changing, because it went from no answer, no reply to, yeah, we're not adding anybody right now, to now, hey, let's talk in a few months. So that progression is starting to happen, and that's happening for a reason, right? Yes, I sound fucking flawless on the phone, so that probably has a lot to do with it. But on top of that, though, service failures are inevitable, right? Things are going to happen. And then when that truck that normally would have been there on Tuesdays has now taken on a new lane because there's making more money going somewhere else, that lane is now all of a sudden hard to cover. So I think that there's little telltale signs like that. And then also, again, this is just from somebody who's actually booking freight. The pushback on rates, the negotiations are a lot heavier from the carrier standpoint than they were even 3 months ago at this point.
Yep. As much as people don't like to hear it or don't want to admit it, this is a market like any other market. We're not
It is
openly traded, and there isn't one central clearinghouse of rates, but this goes for any market that's out there. Price moves in a direction, and it either continues in that direction, it pauses, or it heads in the opposite direction. When rates are going in one direction, they do not immediately reverse and head backwards unless there is an anomalous event. If we were to think of it in terms of trucking, rates are going lower, rates are going lower, rates are going lower. Suddenly, the FMCSA removes 500,000 trucks from the register. That immediately would make rates go higher. That's the type of event that is anomalous, and that is something that does cause an immediate turnaround. Barring something like that, rates move in a direction, rates must pause. They can either resume, stay paused, or reverse. So what we're seeing right now is a pause. We will either go higher or we will go lower from this pause. We don't just knee jerk. So if anyone wanted to make the case that we were going to see rates go higher, the prerequisite for it would be a pause in the drop. That pause in the drop has been going on. We're now seeing conversations like you just said. I'm not telling you rates are going to go higher. I'm not predicting rates are higher. I'm simply saying if we want to see them go higher, right now is something that does need to happen for it. On top of that, I will say we do need to get more comfortable with this idea that where we are in terms of rates is going to be sticky. We added a ridiculous amount of capacity during COVID and immediately after. Whether that's brokerages or just the carriers themselves, we would be crazy not to expect some of that to be bled off. I don't understand the people that are surprised by the length of time required to bleed this off. If we just think about this in practical terms, so many people made so much money in those 2 years or even 2.5 years. They have the bankroll to sit through this right now. Mm-hmm. As bad as everyone is hurting, they have reserves if they weren't a jackass. I know there's a lot of them, and the jackasses are the ones that are leaving. But a lot of people did save their money. In addition to that, we don't have the best of economies out there right now. So the grass isn't greener on the other side. There isn't an alternative. If you own a trucking organization, you're not making a lot of money. You might not even be making any money, but you have money saved up previously to continue to run the organization. Your organization is receiving revenue at a level that allows you to keep the doors open. People don't just shut their business down because they're not making a fortune. It's going to take some time before we see a reason for the rates to go higher. We have to get comfortable with this idea of where rates are at, simply because the amount of trucks that are here are comfortably moving everything. They're doing it at rates that are still allowing businesses to remain open. And unless that changes, we're not going to see rates go higher. There isn't going to be some crazy surge in demand. That's not what happens. Even during COVID, as much as we want to say the move in rates was about the increase in consumer demand, it wasn't. It was about a reallocation of that demand to different freight patterns. It was about detention delays, differences in modalities. All of that stuff is an artificial demand on supply that does not exist. If we think of this in terms of total hours available inside of the marketplace, if I take 11 hours multiplied by every single carrier in the day, that is my absolute finite supply. And anything that affects that, be it demand, detention, or 10,000 pounds instead of 41,000 pounds in the back of the trailer, that is an artificial pull on that supply. Right now, we don't have any of that stuff. So not only are there more trucks, but everything's running perfectly. Everything's running smoothly. There's no problem with scheduling. There's no problem with lead time. Everything is as it should be. And that's the result that produces the rates that we see today.
And right there, you guys, is the best summary that you are going to hear about this industry at the end of the day, because it's true, man. It really is, right? That's why you get so many "we're good right nows" when you're out there trying to develop business, because they are, right? Like, it's been a cake market for brokers for the last 3 years. And my biggest fear for people out there is going to be their failure to adapt when the market flips, because their tendencies are, and again, this is just coming from somebody who's moved a total of 3 truckloads in his career. From my perspective, you have a very hard time letting go of the power, because that's what a lot of brokers have, is they have power. They're making good money. They think that this is just the way it's always going to be. For individuals like myself who are kindly in every single one of your fucking shippers' ears right now, waiting for you to drop the ball, it's because I know how to operate in the opposite market, because I've been there. There are a lot of brokers out there who know that. And there's a lot of brokers who are salivating for this market to change, because they know what to do. And, there's a lot of inexperienced reps out there who don't think that things are going to ever get bad. It's just a natural emotion when it comes to business. When it's good, you think it's always going to remain this way. You never think anything's going to change. And then you get, which is, I think, is the biggest swear word or insulting word in the English dictionary, which is complacent. When you become complacent in business, that is the biggest threat to your entire operation, is complacency, and you thinking that the second one is entitled to anybody's business, and you stop working for it. Maybe you're not sending as many updates, or, oh, hey, it's not that big of a deal that this truck didn't show up. It can load tomorrow. It'll still make it. It's going to be fine. And that might be the case right now, but they're going to start noticing those things. And then there's people in their ears right now who are saying, hey, if we fuck up, this is how we handle it. That's what I say. And then there's other people out there who want to talk about that stuff. And because I never talk price, you guys, and I say this on this show every single day, I never talk price in the prospecting phase. I will talk price after they give us lanes to quote. But right away, it's about, this is how we operate. This is the service that you will get from us. And that's all I sell on, is on my principles to execute their business. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing that. And there's a lot of people who are hungry and waiting for you to drop the ball. So don't take any shipment for granted that is out here. Matt Fink brings up a great point. Many folks haven't gone through the cycles and the swings, and you will have a lot of folks at each stakeholder position who have never participated in the ebbs and flows. Wait until the market goes up and watch the panic ensue due to inexperience and lack of understanding. Matt has been in the industry for, I don't want to say a very long time, because I don't want to put an age on him, but Matt has a lot of experience in the industry, you guys. So those are just some of those situations. Like, it's imperative that you pay attention to this. And I know that there's going to be people who are going to look at this and be like, oh, that dipshit with the backwards hat doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's fine. But again, remember, I'm in your fucking customers' ears, you guys, every fucking day waiting for you guys to drop the ball. This is the reality of a competitive market.
Completely agree. When you are entitled, you become complacent, and you need to think about whatever it is that you did to get the business. That's what you're supposed to keep doing and add to it. It kind of dawned on me when you were talking. I had the pleasure to speak to a brokerage's shippers. They got all their shippers together to say thank you for the business. I was fortunate to come in and speak, and one of the questions they asked was, we hear you, we understand what you're saying, the market is going to be soft, it's going to take a lot to turn it around. What advice would you give us as far as what we can do with our vendors or new vendors? And I said, be creative, or be open to ideas for anyone who is creative, because the worst case scenario is whatever's presented to you doesn't work. You just put it in the spot market.
Yeah.
Right? The spot market rates are lower than contract rates. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, we'd like to do this, or we want to try that, let's put it as a mini bid, or let me get this rate on file for whatever. Do whatever you want, because the alternative is not a bad alternative whatsoever. Some people, and I don't want to get into that, there are shippers that are choosing to go spot more often just because of rates. Whatever, that's its own thing. But you can also take that same approach if you're a service provider, right? You don't have the business, so get creative to earn the business.
Yeah.
And if it blows up in your face, what's the worst case scenario? You got to be another one of the people that throws it up on a load board and posts and praise. That isn't a bad thing going on right now. I'm not an advocate of it, but there is such an oversupply of trucks right now. It's a buyer's market. So get creative just to earn the business, because as far as covering it, you're sitting pretty. And you touched on a good point. Obviously, when there is more loads out there and there are spot market loads, there's a better opportunity. Spot market loads are just a new time to reprice the market. It's a new opportunity. That's it. When those are gone, a lot of brokers disappear because they don't know how to operate in a contractual market. But the smarter brokers right now, overall, yes, the profitability as total is down, but the margins are not. The margins are higher right now because that gap between contract rates and spot rates, that has been consistent for close to 2 years now. So anyone with contract business is doing just fine. We see the layoffs and we think everyone, is going underwater. That's not the case. If I've got my business from a shipper customer coming contractually, it's on the tender schedule that I know, and I've done my job and I have carriers for it, and I'm essentially auto tendering to them, I don't need to be well staffed. My business is running on autopilot. I'm scheduling and I'm making sure that there's something to support when there's a service failure or a breakdown. I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
I don't need a room full of carrier sales guys.
If you're smart, you don't. You need a couple who have relationship carriers that are out there, and then you can run lean in that department, right? But I think that what you are inevitably seeing, though, is you see how many companies are actually reliant on spot only and how they operate out there. And I think that, from my perspective, it's just one of those things that you need to change. And I say, I've literally been saying this for 4 fucking years, and some people just haven't chosen to adapt to that because they always think that they're better than the market. And, the reality is that's what causes layoffs. That's what caused, like, the fact that you're not looking, the fact that you're not looking at your business right now and saying, we got to change, that is the biggest fucking mistake that you can make, right? Like, you have to constantly be assessing everything out there. And Matt Fink brings up a great point. I am the best. But he did say that the next time Kyle comes on the show, he needs to be on for an hour. And it's true. I would have Kyle on every fucking week if he could.
Do a whole week long. We can do whatever you want.
Dude, we should.
You know what's funny? I haven't seen a gong banged in a while, nor screaming from the rooftops about non-competes.
Yeah, I did see a non-compete post the other day, but yeah, it's been eerily quiet out there. And again, I think, like, this is, when everybody dances on other people's graves when they go out of business and everything else, like, now, unfortunately, their number's been called too. So they're eerily silent out there in the market about how great they are. And hopefully these companies are making the necessary changes to not do this in the future, right? And that's like, yes, I love social media, but that's the bad side of it is I've seen some companies here recently in their social media tactics that I'm like, that's Like, I'm all about fucking free speech, but I'm like, from a business standpoint, that's some questionable shit.
Yeah.
Right. Because I just look at when you celebrate other people's failures openly, dude, I'm a big believer in karma and the universe and everything.
You just started the clock.
Exactly. That's exactly it. You're opening up the door for that.
Yep.
But
the market will humble everyone.
So at the end of the show, are you coming to Phoenix next week? TBD?
TBD. I got to count up how many yeses there were. You tell me how many were there.
All right, 10. No. Kyle, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining as always, Kyle. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. I got a guest coming on again tomorrow. As always, you guys, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. Yes, this is how we can grow, but most importantly, this is how we can reach more people and help them, is because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon. Yeah.